Hello and welcome to this Android development tutorial. In this tutorial, we will learn how to create a gallery app for Android. We go and open Android Studio and click on Start a new Android Studio project. We click on Empty Activity, then we click on Next, and here we wait for the IDE to load and we will write the name of our application. In this case, we will call it just gallery. We make sure that the language we select is Java and the minimum API level, we will select at least 16 this time. Okay? We'll go and click on finish and we will wait for the IDE to load our Android Studio project. What we will do basically is to scan the device for image files, and then we will build a list view that will contain all the elements we need. um, Maybe the most important one being the image view, which will show the images that it finds. Then we will start adding more features and improving the code. To accomplish this, we will use one external library, which will be the Glide library. The Glide library will enable us to load images more efficiently. So it's kind of a must to use external library. And Glide library is one of the best, if not the best, available. So the first thing we will do is we'll go to the left side on the project navigation screen. We'll click on Gradle scripts and we will open the build.gradle file, the second one, which says module app. So don't be confused with the project. We will open the second one, the module app one. Then we go to dependencies of that which is at the bottom, and we will include our dependency that will basically get the required code, kind of library, for us to use it in our application. So we will type implementation, okay, then a single quote com.github.bumptech, so bumptech.glide, okay, colon, a colon, glide, and the glide version, which at time of recording the latest one is 4.9.0. okay. We will also add the annotation processor, which includes some documentation and useful information about the glide. So we type annotation processor single quotes com.github.bumptech.glide colon compiler colon 4.9.0. Now that 4.9.0, and now we can click and sync now right here at the top bar. We click on that. If you don't find it, you can also go and search for the elephant button, which is right here, and click on it. So every time we modify this file, we have to sync the project in order to make Android Studio aware what we are including. So we are including this, and the next thing we will do, so basically we will be getting files from the user storage. For that, we will have to ask for permission to do that. So we go to our manifest file and we will open an element and type uses permission, and we will go and search for read external storage, and we will also add another permission, which will be write external storage. Once we've done this, we can now close this, but before that we will add here in the activity the orientation. So we go and say screen orientation, and we will set that to portrait, which tells the system that our activity will work in portrait mode. Then we go to our main activity.java, and we can see the code the IDE auto-generated for us, which is useful. We will leave that for a moment, and then we will switch to activity main.xml. If you switch to text view, the text mode, we can see that this uses constraint layout, which is kind of a complex layout we don't really need. So we will change that with linear layout. For that, we go to the left side under the res layout folder, and we will delete this file. So we go right click on activity main.xml and click on delete. If you have this checked, please uncheck them and press OK. Okay, right now the file was deleted and this is missing. That's why this activity main here is in red. We will create it, don't worry right now. Okay, we go and right click in the layout folder under the res folder, and we go and click on new layout resource file. Inside these, the new file name will be activity main. Activity main. Okay, so the same name previously, but on the root element we will change it to linear layout, just as that. Then we click on OK, and the IDE generates this layout file for us. If we go and open the preview, right here we can see that it's empty, which is great because we want a clean UI. Okay, if we run the app right now, we can make sure everything is working fine, which should be. Okay, so I'm running this on this emulator right here on the left side of my screen. As you can see, the app is being compiled down here and will be sent to the emulator as soon as it completes the compilation process. Okay, so this is how we compile apps. We basically go and say, you can press Shift F10, or you can also go to the Run menu and click on Run. So now that the app is compiled, we can go to the emulator and see that it works great. So it says gallery, it has this and that, but we want something even cleaner. We don't want this gallery right here, and we don't want this top status bar. So we will hide them. How can we hide them? Well, we go to values folder and style.xml, and we will create a new item under this style right here. We're gonna type item name, and we will say window no title, as I just wrote, and here we will type true because we don't want the title. Okay, and also we're gonna type full screen, which is, and we will say window full screen, and we also type true. Okay, so make sure you have added those both options and run the app again to see if the changes took effect. Okay, so now I'm waiting for the app to be compiled. It's compiled, and now everything is white, so nothing else. Very, very clean UI. Now we're gonna go to our activity main.xml, and inside here we will create a list view, which will enable us to show the pictures or the images we have to the user. Okay, so we're gonna open an element and type list view. The width, we will set that to match parent. The height will be set to 0 dp, and the weight will be set to 1. Why do we do this? Why we don't set everything to match parent? Because later we will add some more elements, but for now this is everything that we can do right now. And of course we have to add an ID to this list view object. we go and type ID, and we will call it list view. So that's great. Now if we run the app right now, we won't see that many changes because we haven't initialized it in code. So to initialize our list view in code, we will go to our onResume method. So we're gonna override this. Why will I do this on an onResume instead of onCreate? Well, the reason is simple, because we need permissions. We need to check if we have permissions to search for files. So we will check if we have those permissions. If not, we will ask the user to give those permissions. Okay, so we're gonna say private static final int, and we say request permissions. Okay, request permissions, and this is just a code we will use. For example, I will use the code 1234. Doesn't really matter. Okay, it's just an ID, an identifier. Okay, right now we will define the permissions, the same permissions we defined on our manifest file. To do that, we go and type private static final string. So this is a string array, and we will call this string array permissions. Okay, and we will assign this, and of course end it with a semicolon. So in Java you always have to end the line with a semicolon. And right here we will type manifest dot permission dot read external storage. Then we're gonna put a comma here, and again manifest dot permission dot write external storage. Okay, great. Now we have defined the permissions we need and our permission request code. The next thing we will define is an integer that will store how many permissions are we asking, because that will help us to check if every permission that we ask was granted or not. So we're going to say private static final int permissions count. In this case, we are only asking for 2 permissions, so we will set this to the number 2. Okay, great. Now we can check. We will ask for permissions on the onResume method because maybe the user went to the settings app of the phone and it disabled permission for our app. That's why we want to check that every time the app is resumed. So we're going to say override protected void on resume. Okay, and this is the onResume method, and inside this we will call super.onResume. Okay, great. Right now inside the onResume method we will have to check if we need to ask or not for permissions. The first thing we have to know is which APIs need permissions. So the APIs that need permission is Android, Marshmallow, and above, which is SDK 23 or Android 6. Okay, so we will check the current version of Android. For that we will go and say if build.version.sdkint is greater or equal than build.versioncodes.m. Okay, if it's greater or equal than Marshmallow, that's what this is saying, we will request permissions. Okay, so here we can maybe check if the permissions are already granted. Okay, so how can we check if the permissions are already granted? So we'll create a method for that. We're gonna say private boolean, we want to know if we are granted or not. So in this case, we will call it our permissions denied, for example. Our permissions denied. Okay, this is our method. And inside this method, we will create a for loop that will check if the permissions we need, in this case 2 permissions, are granted or denied or whatever the case may be. Okay, here we're gonna go and say for int I equals 0, okay, I less than, I less than permissions count I plus plus. Okay, for int I equals 0, I less than permission count I plus plus. This is basically check for all the permissions, in this case 2. And here we will go and say if check self permission, and we will pass a permissions I, in this case the current permission of the loop. So permissions I, if this returns a result that is different from package manager that permissions granted, we will return true. Okay, so here we have a warning which says that this call API requires level 23, but we are already checking that, so we can ignore this. So we're going to say suppress lint API notation. Okay, and now the warning is hidden, is gone. Okay, so if the permissions are not granted, we will return true because this is checking if permissions are denied. Otherwise, we will return false. Okay, so make sure you have your method the same as mine. And here inside the onResume method, we will check if the permissions are or not denied. So first, the first condition to ask for permissions is that the device should be above or equal than Android Marshmallow, and the second one, so we're gonna and if the permissions are denied, we also want to ask for permissions. Okay, so how do we ask for permissions? It's pretty simple. We're gonna say request permissions, and we will pass the first parameter will be our permissions array, and the second one will be permissions count. Oh no, the permissions code. The second one will be our permissions code, which is request permissions. Okay, so make sure you have the same as me, and here we will return. We will return in order to avoid running the next code twice. Okay, so in this case the user grants or denies our permission. Okay, so I will explain that just now. Okay, after the user clicks on grant or not the permission, we have to know if the permission was or not granted. For that, we will override the following method. The method we are overriding is public void on request permissions result. So we are getting the result of the permission we requested, and inside these we have the following parameters. I like to use it finals, but okay. Final int request code. Okay, and then we have final string array permissions, and we also have final int array results, or maybe grant results if we want to call that. Okay, and inside the method we're gonna say super that on request permissions results, and the first parameter we'll pass is request code, the second is permissions, and the third is grant results. Okay, now the next thing we will do right here, we will check if the request code is the same we sent. So we go and say if request code is the same as request permissions, and we also want to check if we have any result. For that we're gonna say, and if grant result that length is greater than 0, which basically means it's not empty. And here we're gonna call again if our permission is denied to know if the user actually granted or not. So you're gonna say if our permissions denied. Here we will clear the application data, which is a cool hack that enables us to keep asking for permissions. To do that, we will go and say two parentheses, pairs, and inside them we're gonna say activity manager, and outside that parentheses we're gonna say objects that require non-null, these that get system service activity service. This can be useful, and here we're gonna say that clear application user data. This can be useful if we want to clear the application data. If not, we can have a different approach, but here we are using this, and we will say recreate. Okay, that will be it for now, and as you can see, it again says we need API 19, but we already checked that, so we're gonna suppress notation warning. Okay, so your permissions are denied, but what happens if they are not denied, so they are granted? We have to call on resume. So when we call on resume, this if won't be kind of true, so you're gonna go else, and this is what will be executed. We actually don't need this because we're already returning. So we're gonna go, and right here we have to initialize everything. Okay, right here we initialize our app, which we will do in the next tutorial. I hope you enjoy it, and I see you in the next one. Bye.